In the dry, sun-bleached landscapes of first-century Judea, food was both a gift from the heavens and a constant struggle for survival. This documentary delves deep into the daily lives of those who lived in the time of Jesus, exploring the simple yet profound ways they procured and prepared their meals. From the humble bread baked in clay ovens to the fish caught in the Sea of Galilee, each meal was a testimony of resilience and divine provision. Journey with us to uncover the sacred rituals, survival skills, and the spiritual significance of food in the ancient world, revealing not only how these people ate, but how food was woven into their faith and survival in a harsh, unforgiving land. How food was prepared in the time of Jesus too. 0 years ago, a biblical documentary. The sun beats down relentlessly upon the barren hills of Judea. The land is arid, the air thick with dust, and yet, life persists in this harsh, unforgiving world. It is a land where survival is not a certainty, but a constant struggle, where every meal is a gift from God and a testament to human ingenuity. 2,000 years ago, the people of this ancient world relied not on the comforts of modern technology, but on faith, tradition, and resourcefulness to provide sustenance. In this documentary, we journey back in time to uncover how food was prepared in the time of Jesus, exploring the ways in which the faithful navigated their everyday survival. From humble meals to the profound spiritual significance of their food, the land, harsh and unforgiving. In this world, food is not abundant. Judea, the land where Jesus walked, was a region of extremes, blazing hot summers, bitterly cold winters, and little fertile land. It is a land where the rain comes infrequently, and the soil is often too dry to yield crops without painstaking effort. The air is thick with dust, carried by the relentless wind. Mountains, deserts, and rugged valleys form the backdrop for this story of survival. The landscape is not just a geographical challenge, it is a spiritual one. The people of Judea understood the land as a divine gift, but also as a place of testing. In this barren place, food is not a given. Every meal is hard-earned, a labor of love, sweat, and faith. And the people had to adapt, growing their food in the rocky soil, or relying on the life-giving waters of the Jordan River and the Sea of Galilee. The bread, a staple of life bread, was the cornerstone of the ancient diet. Jesus, in his teachings, spoke of bread in many forms, often calling it the bread of life. The preparation of this humble food is where the story of survival truly begins. In the homes of the common folk, bread was more than just food. It was a central part of their identity and their connection to God. The grain used to make bread was typically wheat or barley, depending on the region. But growing these grains was not an easy task. The fields had to be carefully prepared, and the harvest was often dependent on the capriciousness of the weather. A bad season could mean hunger for many. Once harvested, the grain had to be milled, a task that required time and skill. Small community mills were set up in villages, where people would grind their grain by hand, using large stones to crush it into flour. The flour was then mixed with water, a little salt, and sometimes yeast. Kneading the dough was a laborious task, done by hand. In some villages, women would gather together to knead and shape the dough, working as a community. The dough was then left to rise. Though without modern yeast, the process was slow, and the bread was often dense and heavy. This long rise period, though more time-consuming, imbued the bread with a unique, deep flavor. The communal aspect of bread making cannot be overlooked. Families and neighbors would often come together to knead the dough and bake it, sharing in the work and the reward. In a sense, this ritual of preparing bread was an act of solidarity. The people of Jesus' time were not just surviving, they were bound together by their shared efforts and faith. In the absence of ovens, bread was often baked in clay or stone ovens, or even on large, flat stones placed over an open fire. The heat from the flames would bake the dough, transforming it into a hearty, filling meal. The bread, when it emerged from the oven, was brown and crusty. Its smell, rich and inviting, was a beacon of nourishment in the harsh landscape. The crackling sound of the crust breaking as it cooled was a familiar, comforting noise in the homes of the time. The fish, A blessing from the sea. For those living near the Sea of Galilee, fish was another vital source of sustenance. Fishing in the time of Jesus was not the leisurely pursuit it is today. It was a labor-intensive activity that required great skill and patience. Fishermen would cast their nets into the sea at dawn, when the waters were calm and the fish were plentiful. The catch was often small, and the fishermen had to be careful with their resources. Fishing was a communal effort. The disciples themselves were fishermen by trade, and their nets were often cast in groups, pulling in whatever bounty the sea might offer. The Sea of Galilee, though often calm and inviting, was a fickle partner. Its waters could turn violent, and fishermen could find themselves at the mercy of nature. Yet, even when the nets came up empty, they relied on their faith to trust in God's timing and provision. The fish were often dried or salted to preserve them for times of scarcity. Salt was an essential part of life, and it was often harvested from the shores of the Dead Sea. Once salted, the fish could be stored for days or weeks, providing a valuable protein source when other food was in short supply. The process of drying or salting fish was not without its difficulties. The preservation methods had to be perfect, as the heat of the sun and the moisture in the air could spoil the catch. The drying process would take several days, the fish laid out in the open air, flipping them over as the sun slowly removed their moisture. Salt was carefully rubbed into the flesh, a practice that preserved the fish's flavor and kept it from spoiling. The significance of fish in the time of Jesus cannot be overstated. Fish were not only a vital food source but also held symbolic importance in the Gospels. Jesus performed miracles involving fish, such as the feeding of the 5,000 with just 5 loaves and 2 fish. The fish was a sign of divine provision, a symbol of the abundance that could come from the most humble of sources. The miracle of the loaves and fishes exemplifies the idea that even in the smallest of offerings, God could provide more than enough. The olive tree, symbol of life and sustenance. The olive tree, with its gnarled roots and silvery leaves, was another essential part of the food system in Judea. Olives were not only used for their oil, but also for their fruit. Olive oil was a vital part of the diet, used for cooking, lighting lamps, and even for anointing. The olives were harvested by hand, often in the fall, and then pressed to extract the oil. The pressing process was a slow, careful procedure, done with large stone mills. The oil was prized for its purity, its rich flavor, and its ability to sustain life in a land where resources were scarce. Olive oil had far-reaching importance beyond the kitchen. It was used in religious rituals, in the anointing of kings, priests, and prophets, and in daily life. The pressing of olives was a communal event, with families often gathering to press the fruit and share in the bounty. The oil was considered a gift from God, symbolizing His abundant grace. In the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus speaks of the olive tree in a parable, symbolizing faith and spiritual resilience. In the same way that the olive tree endures the harshest of conditions, so too do the faithful who trust in God's provision. The olive tree, able to survive for centuries, became a symbol of endurance, faith, and the sustaining power of God's love. The rituals of sharing. A community in need. Food in the time of Jesus was not just about survival. It was about community. Meals were shared with family, friends, and strangers alike. The act of breaking bread together was a sacred practice, a ritual that symbolized unity and fellowship. In the home of a Jewish family, the Sabbath meal was a moment of rest, reflection, and gratitude. It was during these meals that the people reflected on God's providence, offering thanks for the food they had and praying for continued blessings. Sharing food was seen as an extension of God's love. When Jesus sat with sinners, tax collectors, and the marginalized, He demonstrated the radical inclusivity of God's kingdom. The act of eating together, of sharing bread and fish, was a symbol of God's grace extended to all. These meals were more than nourishment. They were signs of the reconciliation and restoration that Jesus came to offer. The common practice of sharing bread and wine at a meal, especially during Passover, became deeply symbolic. At the Last Supper, Jesus broke the bread and passed the wine, instituting the Eucharist, a sacrament that would transcend time and culture, continuing to nourish the souls of believers for millennia to come. Survival and faith. The divine provision. In the harsh conditions of ancient Judea, survival was as much a matter of faith as it was of skill. The people relied on God to provide for them, often praying for rain, for a bountiful harvest, or for their daily bread. But their faith was not passive. They worked tirelessly to cultivate the land, to catch the fish, and to prepare the food. Each meal was a reminder of the delicate balance between human effort and divine grace. In the wilderness, survival was often a matter of endurance. Food was scarce and hunger was a constant companion, but the people of Jesus' time did not give up. They believed that God would provide, even in the most difficult circumstances, and often, when they least expected it, their needs were met, just as the Bible tells of the manna from heaven, or the loaves and fish multiplied by the hands of Jesus. In this world, every meal was an act of faith, the enduring legacy of ancient food practices. The food practices of the time of Jesus continue to influence the way people eat today. The rituals of bread making, the importance of fish in the diet, and the sacred nature of shared meals have remained integral parts of many cultures. In the midst of our modern lives, it can be easy to forget the harsh realities of survival in ancient times. But the story of food in the time of Jesus serves as a reminder of the resilience, faith, and community that sustained those who lived in a world far removed from our own. As we reflect on the simple yet profound ways that food was prepared and shared in this ancient world, we are reminded that the struggle for survival is not just physical, it is also spiritual. In every grain of wheat, in every fish caught from the sea, and in every olive harvested from the tree, there is a lesson in faith, perseverance, and divine provision. And perhaps in our own lives, we can take a moment to reflect on the sacredness of food, not just as a means of survival, but as a gift from God, meant to be shared and appreciated with gratitude and love.